pitch to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Patriots Touchback Podcast. If you were here yesterday, you would have heard Carl and Kieran go on about the Patriots picks and how well the Patriots did. What me and DJ are going to do for you today is we're going to go on about the rest of the draft in general. We'll touch on some good things, we'll touch on some bad things, what we liked, what we didn't like, but we thought we'd give the whole draft just a little bit of airtime. So, DJ, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, nice to come back on board with yourself. I think we covered pretty much. Well, you did. Sorry, you did most of the. I think it was about 3 hours after I come off.
I was going to say you bailed after an hour and 20 minutes, and I was still going 3 hours later.
Surprised when I watched it back in the morning or mid afternoon. It was. You went on for an extra 3 hours, like did the whole entire round two. I was like, wow.
Round
2 and 3. I was like, yeah, proper props to you and a trooper for getting that going all the way through to the end. So yeah, it was good. It was decent.
Are you happy with the Patriots draft?
Yeah, I think we had some solid picks. Don't get me wrong. I think there was some kind of wasted picks towards the end. You know, the snapper and the kicker. But I think they were just picks where we could have got undrafted. I think we could have got those as unrestricted free agents or undrafted. But yeah, I think overall we did dominate what we needed to dominate on, and we picked the right players for the right gaps that we needed. I have to give like Kieran and Carl were saying last night. You have to give credit where credit's due to Elliot Wolf. I think last year, I think it was a bit of a, like they said, it was a very unorganized organization. This year with Vrabel pretty much in charge of how things are going and how things are panning out, I think they did nail this draft. And like they were saying last night, I think the grade A- is acceptable and it's achievable to what we wanted to do. So I think at the end of the day, like I said, we filled in multiple gaps that we needed to fill in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was very hard for Kieran and Carl to give Elliot Wolf credit. That did sound like it came through gritted teeth. I mean, I think we were unlucky that Houston pinched Jaden Higgins in the second just before us, because as I understand it from what I've heard, there was a big thing in the war room in New England about, do they take Higgins or do they take Henderson? And I think it was a real decision. And eventually the Houston Texans taking Higgins made the decision for them. But I know that me and Carl were big on Higgins, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get him. You know, I don't mind the Wilson pick. I quite like the Wilson pick. I think he was by far and away the best center in the draft. He can play guard as well. So we've got a couple of issues at guard. We've had a couple of issues at guard. But the thing I didn't like about that pick at the time was I felt that maybe somebody like Jack Sawyer was on the board as an edge. Maybe whether you get him in the fourth, and then if Wilson's gone in the fifth, then you change and go for someone like Jonah Monheim, who was the second best center. Or I felt that while I don't have a problem with the Wilson pick per se, I had a problem about when we made that pick. I really thought that somebody like Jack Sawyer there would have been a better option. But nevertheless, you give the guys credit. You know, we got a great draft review. We got a great grade. We did really well. So, you know, kudos to the whole team.
I think the plan was to probably take Jay Higgins at number 2, but given the fact that Texans took him quite early off us or where we wanted to select him, there was rumours as well that we wanted to take that second guard, Salamaneo, I think his name is. I think the tech who ended up taking them? Was it the Chiefs? No. or Arizona.
Salavanaya, Jonas
Yeah.
Salavanaya.
Yeah, I think Arizona
Yeah.
ended up taking him.
No,
I think there
Arizona
was
didn't.
rumors were flying around that we wanted to take him as well, and then he obviously flew off the board as well. But
Yeah.
I think the way that I saw it, or the way that I envisioned it, was like we always had a backup plan in case that guy that we wanted went off the board. We always had that. That's where Trevor Henderson obviously probably came into play. We probably didn't want to pick him at 2, but because of the fact that Jay Higgins went off, and given the connections that obviously Vabel had with Ohio State, I think that's probably where he then wanted to step in and say, right, I'm taking this lad at round 2. And then you've got probably that guard Wilson in 3. So I don't. The LSU lad as well. I think he was a big. He dropped quite drastically into the draft. And I think we got a steal there at round, was it 4 or 5 that we picked up the LSU lad Swinson edge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like I say, I think we filled in a lot of positions where we had needs in that we needed to pick. And you got to give credit where credit's due. I don't think we've had this kind of draft since God knows, the eras of Bill Belichick. I mean, it's long gone, but this is something that would the fan base and what we needed, and it's given an excitement, a new excitement to the thing. I mean, we're all talking about playoffs next year, which I'm not so thinking about hitting playoffs or wild card or anything like that. I'm happy if we can get 6, 7, 8 wins. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I still think there's a lot more that we're going to be doing from here till minicamp. So
yeah, right. So let's get on with this show. Like I said, guys, if people who are listening want the Patriots review, that was last night. Carl and Kieran did a great job, and you'll find that wherever you on our YouTube page or Spotify or Apple. You will find all that. You can listen to that. What we're going to do now is we're just going to go through the draft and just give our highlights and lowlights. Where I want to start is I want to start with Shedeur Sanders, because that guy fell like a stone. Now, setting aside the prank call, we'll come on to that. I don't really want to spend too much time with it. We know what's gone on. But the draft process is a 3-pronged process. It's your game tape from playing, it's your combine performance, and it's your interview and interview process. Now, as I understand it, Shedeur Sanders went into the combine, said, "No, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not doing that," and did very little. At his pro day, it was very micromanaged. He didn't do too much there either. In his interview, he went into the Giants of all places and just didn't really want to interview properly. Daboll gave him something to do. He said, "No, that's not for me."
Oh, sorry, just some breaking news on Patriots.
Go on.
We've just released Joe Cardona.
Shock, horror. Having taken a long snapper, I would have expected that.
That is
I would have expected that very soon.
Yeah, it's just
so. No worries.
I don't know why.
So as from a lot of what I've read, a lot of GMs took Shedeur Sanders off the board. They weren't interested in him. So all this talk of him going 9 to the Saints or 21 to the Steelers, he was never going to go to many places at all. And I think it's quite ironic that he went to the Browns of all places, because they are just a mess to start with. So, obviously, I did the live watch along. You'd gone to bed by this point because you only hung around for a little bit. Me and Carl did round 1, and Shedeur Sanders fell. But when he fell through round 1, it wasn't that. It was a big thing, but it wasn't a huge thing. And then as I did 2 and 3 on my own, certainly as we got to the end of 2 and we got to the start of 3, he just kept dropping and dropping. And I had something to talk about, which I'm really pleased about, because you go through that watch along and the last 2 hours is all about Sanders falling. It's like, I don't know when this guy's going to get picked. And I'm just picking teams that he could go to and he doesn't. So he just kept falling and falling. And I started with day 4. I started watching day 4 because I knew we had an early pick. And I knew that the Raiders had 2 picks straight behind us. And I was like, maybe he's going to go to the Raiders. And after he fell past the Raiders at 8 and 9 in the 4th round, I was like, wow. And I was, I don't know when this guy's going to go. And I was then busy and I missed a lot of round 5, 6, and 7. But so what do you think about Sanders?
I'm going to be brutally honest, right? I think he could have had a chance to go into the NFL draft last year. He opted not to, and he wanted to stay this extra year because he wanted to be in this QB draft class that he wanted to be in. So that's with Dart and whoever's in Ewers. And he wanted to kind of outclass those guys, which I get.
He believed he would be number 1.
Yeah, he would. Yeah. In fairness, I think he should have, but I think I actually starting to feel sorry for the lad.
Yeah,
in some sort of aspect, because I don't think he's a bad quarterback. He's coachable. I just think he brings a lot of baggage, with the Sanders family and the cockiness he brings with it. His interviews that he took as well, he didn't come across as the best interviewer or wanting to go to Giants or whatever the case may be. And that's what I think put a dent into his whole draft process. And that's why he's dipped so low as where he's gone past. If he would have been a normal quarterback with having no issues past or with the dad or agents, blah, 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 I would have reckoned he would have gone probably top end 1, probably, maybe. Or the Saints would have maybe gone and took him at 9. But the fact that the Giants then wanted to take Dart before him, that I think that was just that must have hurt him really bad. But at the end of the day, I think he deserves what he got. Being the way he took this whole process on. I don't agree with pro days and combines. If that's just a 1-day thing that anyone could do well, do bad. To me, it's all tape of what he's done throughout the whole seasons that he's been in Colorado, Buffalo. So I view it on that aspect. And I think at round 5, the Browns have obviously got a steal. I've seen a video released a couple of hours ago where the Browns war room didn't look too impressed of taking Sanders. Like they got 4 to kind of take it. That's the rumors that's flying around now, and you just see everyone just clapping. There was no kind of excitement or anything. It was just a pick that they had to take. So but yeah, and obviously the prank call thing was a bit of a I didn't think that was done very well. I thought that took quite a lot of the piss taken out of him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only one that was prank called. Apparently, Tyler Warren was prank called.
I have not heard
Tyler Warren.
Yeah, okay.
Tyler Warren was called and told when the Jets were about to be on the clock. He was called. He was called and told that the Jets were going to be taking him. Okay. And then he was told that not really. So turns out that the son of the Atlanta defensive coordinator got hold of.
But I blame the dad in this thing. You should not be lying your iPad around, especially with confidential data on there that anyone can just...
Straight away, you have an issue there in that Microsoft paid God knows how many hundreds of millions to be the official tablet of the NFL, and there's a statement from the Atlanta Falcons saying, "Well, he had an iPad, you know." But again, it's in his own home. He's doing work. You know, his son went over to his house. It's anyway. There's more detail. If you only need to go and search it, and there will be far more detail on it than we're going to talk about here. But yeah, it's kids being kids, but they're not kids because they're 21. They should know better.
Yeah,
you know,
they just think.
Don't get me wrong. You know, we all did a prank call when we were kids. We all knocked 100%. On the door and ran away and whatever. You know, you all did that when you were kids. But that was when you were 10, 12, 14 and you didn't know any better.
This
21.
Man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, right, let's get on to the nitty and gritty. Let's do some draft detail. Right, starting with the Arizona Cardinals. They drafted Walter Nolan in 1, Will Johnson in 2, Jordan Birch in 3, Cody Simon in 4, Denzel Burke in 5, Hayden Connor in 6, and Kyton Crawford in 7. Now, for me, the best one there is Will Johnson. He's an absolute steal in the second round. He fell because of his injury record. And I think, you know, that's if he's over it, great. It's one of those. If he is over his injury, Atlanta have got a steal. But if he has injury problems, Arizona. If he's got injury problems, then that could be a costly pick.
But that's a risk you kind of take. I mean, at round 2 at 47, if you want to sit the lad for a season because he's still not that over his injury, well, then you can sit him and he'll be fully back. Hopefully he'll be fully back for next year or half of this season. You wouldn't want to take that risk on a round 1, for example, where we all projected that he was gonna go in round 1 by far. He just kept dripping and dropping because everyone was vastly scared or didn't know what this injury would sustain moving forward for him. So I think Arizona at 247 have probably said, look, we'll take a risk on at round 2. If he's not ready, he's not ready. We'll take our time. It's not like we've wasted a round 1 on him. So I think it's a really good pick. I mean, even round 3s and 4s, Cody Simon, middle linebacker at Ohio State, I think that's a steal as well. I mean, I think they've drafted very well, considering they only had 6 picks in this draft. But I think they did all right. They did okay.
Moving on to Atlanta. They had 2 picks in round 1 with a trade. They selected Jalen Walker with their own pick at 15. They then traded back in with the Rams, I think.
Yes, correct.
For James Pierce Jr. In round 3, they got Xavier Watts. They lost round 2 as part of their trade. They got Xavier Watts of the Fighting Irish at 3. Billy Bowman from Oklahoma at 4. And then in round 7, they got Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. Now, I had a first-round grade on Xavier Watts. I thought this guy might sneak into the first round. If not, someone was getting a steal at the beginning of the second. For Xavier Watts, and he was healthy all season, so it wasn't an injury issue. For Xavier Watts to fall to the 3rd, that is a massive steal. And Billy Bowman in 4, who's another safety, he throughout the whole process has been one of my sneaky below the one of the sleepers that I thought was so. For them to get 2 decent safeties and for one of them to get in the 3rd when I had a first round grade on him, I think that's fantastic. But then again, on the flip side of the coin, I think they paid a lot to trade back into the 1st.
That's what I was just going to mention now. I didn't get the whole concept of what the Falcons were trying to do. I get Jalen Walker. He's a Georgia boy. He's born bred home grown, whatever you want to call it, in Atlanta. So I get that pick. But for them to come back up in the first round to get another edge in James Pierce Jr., where we've got concerns about his coachability side of things as well. He's not the easiest to coach. Unless they want to kind of move Jalen into a middle linebacker rush edge and then just keep Pierce as a solid edge rusher, I get that. But I didn't see the need to go and get Pierce and pay what they paid it. Xavier Watts, yes, a great steal. I mean, I had him in my mocks going 4th, 5th round picks sometimes as well. He was dropping quite drastically as well. Again, round 4, I don't know why they went safety again, whilst you've just got Watts in round 3. It was just a bit of confusing Falcons draft picks there, so I wasn't too fond of what they did. I think they could have probably did a bit better on what they've managed to do. But
yeah, cool. Moving on to Baltimore.
Yep,
they got Malachi Starks in 1. They got Mike Green in 2. Emory Jones in 3. Teddy Buchanan in 4. Carson Wilson in 5. Bill Halkane in 6. Tyler Loop in 6. LaJohn Wessler in 6. Arenas Peebles in 6.
7, yeah.
Robert Longbeam in 6. And Garrett Dellinger in 7. And if I have butchered any of those names, I apologize. For me, I had Malachi Starks going to the Ravens anyway. That was in my mock. I didn't expect Mike Green to fall that far. I think obviously his off the field issues have caused him to fall. I think if there's nothing wrong with those off the field issues, if it turns out that there's nothing to it, that's a really good pick to get him that late.
Yeah. I think Baltimore Ravens, they had 11 picks this draft as well. They've done what the Ravens normally do. They've gone very defensively, except for that wide receiver that they've obviously picked up in round 6, but they've gone very heavy defensive side of the ball. Like I say, Starks, Green, Jones, Buchanan, they're all starters for me. And they'll probably slot into the scheme that Harbaugh does for that team. So I reckon it's a good, from rounds 1 to 4 are all definitely starters, and then obviously 5, 6, and 7s, they're probably just more depth guys, but or something to look out for. Kickers as well.
Emory Jones was the right tackle on the other side of our Will Campbell.
LSU,
yeah. He spent his LSU time at right tackle, and we picked up Will Campbell from the left. So let's move on to our division rivals, Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills. They picked up Maxwell Hairston in the first round. Thank you very much for the Bills for doing that. That earned me a tenner. TJ Sanders went to them in 2. Landon Jackson went to them in 3. Not content with Lamar Jackson, they decided to get a Landon as well. Dion Walker went to them in 4. Jordan Hancock went to them in 5. Jackson Hawes went to them in 5. Dorian Strong went to them in 6. Chase Lunt went to them in 6. And Caden Prather went to them in 7. Now, Hairston, fantastic pick. Was for me probably the 3rd best corner on the board. Certainly the 3rd best corner that was not injured. TJ Sanders I had on my board as the 7th best tackle, I think. Dion Walker. I want to talk about Dion Walker. As the season started last September, he was rated so highly. He was going to be one of the top tackles of the draft class, but he had a terrible season. He couldn't get going at Kentucky. He was in, he was out, he was making mistakes. and his draft stock just fell throughout the year, and he just couldn't turn it around. I think if the Bills can turn him around and get him going back the right way, that could be a fantastic
really good pick.
They could have a really good player there. He needs to improve his footwork. But yeah, Jackson Hawes at 5, Georgia Tech. Fantastic passing tight end. He's great at catching, not so good at blocking, but very good as a pass catching tight end.
Yeah, I think I had them picking their best player was the round floor with Dean Walker. I think, like you say, he didn't have the best Kentucky last year, but if they can turn him around, then I think they're in for a good little player there. I wasn't too on Hairston. I didn't rate him as high as what other people did, but yeah, that's the Bills to thingy. And then I did like the TJ Sanders pick. I think that was a reach, but I think it's a good pick at the end of the day for them. It's a need that they need for defensive line, so can't fault them. I think they could have had a stronger draft pick, but yeah.
Carolina, they went for Tet Mack at 8. Nick Scotton went to them at 2. Princely Ulamalian, again, I know I've butchered that one. He went there at 3. Trevor Etienne, brother of Travis, went at 4. Latham Ransom went at 4. Cam Jackson went 5. Mitchell Evans went 5. And Jimmy Horn Jr. went 6. I didn't think this was a fantastic draft, to be honest. They picked up 2 edges in 2 consecutive rounds, but didn't pick a cornerback that they desperately needed. The only thing I've got to say about this one is Tet Mack at 1. Everyone who was anyone was mocking was mocking a defensive player there, whether it be Jalen Walker, whether it be Jihad Campbell, whether it be Mike Green, or
I had Will Johnson. I think, like you just said, cornerback Will Johnson would have been a perfect fit, but because of the injury situation that he had, I don't know if they just decided to take best player on the board at the time. And that's where, honestly, I think they've gone. I mean, round 2, pick 51, the edge from Texas A&M, Nick Scotton. I think that's a solid pick. I think that's probably their best pick of the draft, to be honest. Well, except for Tet, where they've got him. But Trevor Etienne, I don't know. Hit and miss kind of guy, I think, depending on how well he can play out. But yeah, like you said, I don't agree on some of the picks.
Yeah.
I get some of them, but yeah.
Moving on to the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
Colston Loveland in 1, Luther Burden in 2, Ozzie Trapio in 2, Shamar Turner in 3, Ruben Hippolyte from Maryland in 4, Zach Fraser in 5, Luke Newman in 6, and Kyle Monagai in 7. I think Ozzy's a good pick in 3. It doesn't surprise me that Luther Burden was there in 2. As the draft got a bit nearer, I did hear more and more people say he probably wasn't going to go around 1. The biggest shock for me is that despite being ahead of the Colts, the Bears chose Loveland over Warren because everyone was touting Warren as the better tight end. So that was like a little shock for me while I was doing the watch along with Carl that night. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ozzie Trapilo one, I wanted him as a Patriot as well. I think he would have fit in with what Mike Vrabel does. But that Colston Loveland one was what it wasn't surprising. It was a surprise. So we had Warren obviously on the board higher than what Loveland was. But I had read reports that Ben Johnson fell in love with Loveland and it's his kind of tight end player. So he obviously associates him with Laporta when he was in with the Lions. Very similar player, so I think he can work wonders with him. So I don't see how he wouldn't have not gone for Lovelands there, but I had Warren definitely as a higher tight end in that aspect. So, but yeah, Burden, I think that pick at 2 as well. It's a good fit. I think he started to drop as well, didn't he? I don't think he was the top wide receiver to come off the board. But again, yeah, I think the Bears did a solid.
He went behind Higgins, so
yeah.
Moving on to Chicago. No, sorry, moving on to Cincinnati.
Bengals.
We've just done Chicago.
Yeah.
Samar Stewart at 1, Demetrius Knight 2, Dylan Fairchild 3, Barrett Carter 4, Jalen Rivers 5, and Tahaj Brooks 6. They didn't have a 7th rounder. Demetrius Knight I had down for a 2nd, so that's about where I thought he might go.
Mm-hmm.
Shamar Stewart, he was going to be one of the first few edges. I wasn't one of these people that was getting hung up on his production and the fact that he only had 4.5 sacks through his career, is because you know the way that Texas A&M played their defensive style and the way that they played defense. Him and Nick Scorton, although they did a job, they didn't necessarily, in doing the job they were asked to do, they weren't necessarily in the right place to get the tackle. It was more force the guy somewhere so that the defensive interior man, Shamar Turner, could get the tackle, or the linebacker got the tackle. So I think I'm not hung up on the tackle number as much as some people. The thing that surprised me for Cincinnati is I felt they needed a cornerback. I felt they could benefit from a tight end. They were 2 needs that I thought they didn't address. You can only address so many picks, whether they could have traded back and picked up an extra one, but they were 2 needs that I felt didn't get addressed.
I think Bengals were very needy of massive defense help. I think they've lost a lot of key players in the defensive side of things, especially with Henderson leaving or not agreeing a contract, or I don't know how that situation is going to pan out. But I think their immediate reaction was to get an edge. And I think it was between 3 of them that were on the board. It was Stewart, I think Nick was still there, Nick Skirton, and there was another lad, Imarandaru, or whatever his name is. I think he was still on the board as well, which he went much later down the line. So they had a choice of who they wanted to kind of pick off edge. Waru, was it? Is that his name?
Might have been, yeah, it might have been.
So like I say, the first 5 picks of that draft, except that running back in the 6th round, are all defensive players. So interior offensive line, middle linebacker, linebacker. So yeah, I think they're just very much trying to strengthen that defense core that they so much need from so many hits from losing players last year.
Yeah, let's move on to Cleveland. We did chat about Shedeur Sanders earlier, but they picked up Mason Graham in 1, Carson Schlesinger in 2, Christian Jenkins in 2, Harold Fanning Jr. in 3, Dylan Gabriel in 3, Dylan Sampson in 4, and Shedeur Sanders in 5. Now, we've spoken about Sanders. Dylan Sampson, absolute steal. I thought he was high on my board. Really, really liked him. Harold Fanning Jr., he was one of those sort of, I think he was my 5th top tight end on the board. Judkins was my 4th running back. Schlesinger was, I think, my 3rd or 4th linebacker. Mason Graham was my 1st
D-line,
defensive tackle. So from an actual player standpoint, I think Cleveland absolutely played a blinder. They got some really good players there. Obviously, the person they didn't get was Travis Hunter. And the reason they didn't is they traded
out.
They traded away with Jacksonville. That's what gave him an extra second rounder. That's what gave him an extra third rounder. They've also picked up a first rounder next year. So they gave up the chance to have Travis Hunter, and instead, for me, they spread the wealth across that draft, and they really got some talent everywhere.
Yeah, I don't dispute the fact that they got Mason Graham to help that defensive line out. The question is that I didn't understand, or I didn't know the whole concept is why you would get Jukins in round 2 running back, and then you would get Samson at round 4 when you've got Nick Chubb. You've got
they let Nick Chubb go.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
I've not seen that.
I don't think Chubb's there. I think they let him go.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He left in free agency. I can't remember.
And then they obviously got Dylan Gabriel, and then they went and got Sanders. So with Watson, Flacco, who's the other QB they got as well? There's another QB.
Kenny Pickett.
Pickett, maybe, yeah. So they got like 5 QBs on the depth chart.
I mean, Watson's going to be injured all year. He's going to be on the pup list all year. He won't even be in the facility apart.
I reckon he won't play anymore.
He won't be in the facility apart from to get treatment. So he, for all intents purposes, he's not going to be in the QB room. He's not going to be there watching film. He's not going to be there in meetings. He is going to be on the pup list. Go away. We're not interested. Like you said, he can never play again. But that still leaves 4 QBs, and one's got to go. I mean, having drafted Sanders, they might cut Sanders. I don't know. I think they need.
I reckon they need to be a starter at round 5.
I mean, they kind of need Joe Flacco there as just some experience of wise head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think, to be honest, I think it's either Kenny Pickett or Shedeur Sanders that doesn't make the cut. If it's Kenny Pickett, he might get traded. Shedeur might just get cut with if they can't trade him.
But poor Gabriel, though, because he did decent for Oregon, and he's gone into a team where he might not even have a shout of having a starting position. That's what I don't know.
Yeah. Moving on to Dallas.
Plus next year, the Browns now got a first round pick, so we'll see what Archie Manning does.
Yeah, they got 2 first rounders next year. Moving on to Dallas.
Yep.
No, Jerry likes to be the center of attention. They picked Tyler Booker in 1, Donovan Ezerako in 2, Siobhan Revel in 3, Jaden Blue in 5, Shamar James in 5, Angie Cornelius in 6, Jay Toller in 7, Phil Maffa in 7, and Tommy Akingbote in 7. Yep. I think those first 4 picks, absolute fantastic picks. Actually, for what Dallas needed, brilliant. Mm-hmm. You know, they came away with probably 4 out of 5 needs that I felt they needed to address. They got. Love Ezeraku. Shavon Revel was dropped that far because of his injury. You know, Jaden Blue running back supplemented the Texas running game fantastically. The only thing I have to say about the Dallas draft is Tyler Booker. In the same way that I sat here and I said to you about, I didn't have a problem with the Patriots Wilson pick, but I didn't like where we picked him. I don't have an issue with the Booker pick. They needed to replace Zach Martin, who retired. But I just felt that maybe 12 was a little high for Booker.
High. It's a reach, yeah.
Nobody needed a guard till Cincinnati at 17. Are you telling me even if you traded down once with?
But would you say Booker's the best guard?
No, I would have said at the time that they drafted, you had
the guy's a beast.
You had. Donovan Jackson was on the board.
Yeah.
And the other guy, and his name's gone. It'll come back to me. The guy that went to Cincinnati. Hang on. Not Cincinnati. Seattle. He went to Seattle. Gray Zabel. That's it. Gray Zabel.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I had that name in. I had that name in my head somewhere. So they could have taken Zabel. They could have taken Donovan Jackson, who I had as guards ahead of Booker, but Booker would help with the effectively if Dallas chose to do their own tush push, their own brotherly shove.
Never going to happen.
Tyler Booker would help in that case, but I just felt it was a little high to take him. That was all.
I agree. The top 4 picks, round 1, 2, and 3, are definitely are Cowboy fits, and I think they've drafted well. Donovan Azaraku as well, the edge Boston College. I had him highly on my board as wanted him as an edge and Patriots as well. So, yeah, I think they did decent for once.
Yeah. I'm gonna skip through the next 2 quickly. Denver collected Jahdae Barron at 1. Love that pick. RJ Harvey at 2. Again, good pick. I wondered whether he would get into the later rounds, but I think when you saw 2 running backs go at the beginning of 2, it was quite evident that he wasn't going to go into 3. So they maybe did a good move pulling him then. Pat Bryant went in 3. That's very high for him. I had him as a 4 or a 5 at least. Savion Jones went in at 3. Q Robinson at 4. Jeremy Crawshaw at 6. And Caleb Lohner at 7. Not really got anything to say about that other than Jahdae Barron to go and play for Peyton. Fantastic. Moving on to the Lions. They picked Tyreek Williams at 1. Tate Ratledge at 2. Isaac Tashir at 3. Miles Frazier in 5. Ahmed Hassan in 6. Dan Jackson in 7. And Dominic Lovett in 7. Tyler Williams didn't expect it to be a defensive tackle. Kind of expected another edge to supplement Adrian Hutchinson. But other than that, no, nothing really. Tate Ratledge, they needed a guard, so that helped them on their way. Let's move on to Green Bay. They selected, for the first time in however many years,
I think it's 2002.
They selected, a wide receiver in the first round, Matthew Golden. Come on down, your name has been called. They selected Anthony Belton in 2. They selected Savion Williams in 3, Baron Sorrell in 4, Colin Oliver in 5, Warren Brinson in 6, Mika Robinson 7, and John Williams in 7. Now, I think it's overdue that they needed to take a wide receiver in 1. Even when Aaron Rodgers was there, he was moaning that he wanted a wide receiver, and he never got one. The big thing for me with this Green Bay pick is their round 2 pick, Anthony Belton. I had him as like a 5 or a 6 round pick. The guy is huge. I mean, the guy, it's like moving a wardrobe. The guy is absolutely monstrous. Hasn't got the quickest feet. I think that's probably to do with the actual size of him. I just think, is that too high a pick when you think about all the other tackles that were on the board? I just wonder whether that pick's a little rich in the same context that Booker was a bit rich for the Cowboys. I'm not against the tackle pick because they kind of needed one, but I do wonder whether the actual where they picked was a little rich.
Yeah, I think, like I say, the round 1 was a much need situation, but then after that, I've not got any concerns with any of them. I really don't know any of those players except for Anthony Belton, which I think went way too high. But yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to Houston. They didn't have a first round pick because they traded out. So they had Jaden Higgins in 2. That's a big annoyance because I wanted the Patriots to pick him. They had Adonai Ursery in 2. Jalen Knoll in 3. Jalen Smith in 3. Woody Marks in 4. Jalen Reed in 5. Graham Mertz in 6. Keontae Hamilton in 7. And Luke Latchley in 7. Love the Latchley pick. He was one of those seven rounders I would have taken. I really rated him throughout. He was a sleeper for me.
Could have gone undrafted though, didn't he? Maybe
he could have done, yeah.
Yeah.
Jalen Reed was one of those. Was the safety that I was always looking at trying to, in all the mock drafts I did, it was always the safety that I ended up picking for the Patriots in round 5. So can't complain at that.
Yeah.
Do you think Houston were told that they could select a wide receiver from somewhere other than Iowa State? To pick up Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins, they did well there. Adonai Ursery, we'll see how he does. But when you think they could have had Simmons, they could have stopped him going to the Chiefs, and instead they, hey ho, never mind. Right. The Colts picked Warren at 1, JT Tuimoloau at 2, Justin Whaley at 3, Jalen Travis 4. DJ Giddens 5, Riley Leonard 6, Tim Smith 6, and Hunter Wooher at 7. Surprised they got Tyler Warren with just because Chicago picked Loveland first, but he was the guy that I mocked to them, so they got what they needed. Other than that, haven't really got a lot to say about Indianapolis unless you want to add anything.
No, I think Warren is their type of player that they wanted to pick anyway. I think they would have taken him, like you say, at pick 14. I didn't expect him to drop because of the Bears situation, but I didn't expect them to pick that Notre Dame quarterback, but that Riley Leonard. I didn't think he was that highly rated that much, but fair dues.
He's a running he's a running QB. He hasn't got the greatest arm, but he can run.
Yeah.
So he's like a not as good a version of Lamar Jackson. He can, if you need a QB to run you to a running play, he's the sort of guy you bring in. Moving on to Jacksonville, obviously we discussed with the Cleveland pick that they traded and got Travis Hunter. It meant that they lost the second round pick, so they didn't have a second rounder. They picked Hunter in 1, Caleb Ransor in 3, Wyatt Millam in 3, Bushay Tellen in 4, Jack Kaiser in 4, Jalen McLeod in 5, Brandon Lane in 6, Jonah Monheim in 7, and LaQuint Allen in 7. Jonah Monheim was someone I would have taken at the Patriots if Wilson wasn't on the board. Jack Kaiser in 4 from Notre Dame. Absolute steal. That guy, absolute steal. He's been injured. He might even miss some of the year this next year through injury. He might start on the pup list. But to spend a draft pick and get him, fantastic. Wyatt Millam, guard. He was fourth guard on my board. So, I think they've done well there. And they managed to pick up Travis Hunter. So
he's the only player I notice on that. I don't know who the fuck the other people are. I've not even seen them, heard of them.
I will hopefully get to see Hunter in person when I go and see the Jacksonville Jaguars at Wembley in October, but we'll see. Moving on to the Chiefs. Again, I'm annoyed they managed to get Simmons. He dropped because of his injury, but for the other 31 teams in the NFL to let that happen, not great. They got your guy, Orman Norman Lott, in the second round. They got Aston Gillette in the third round. Noah Williams in the third round. Jalen Royals 4, Jeffrey Basser 5, and Breshad Smith 7.
think Royals dropped quite a bit as well. I expected
He
him to go
did, yeah.
slightly higher.
I expected
more
him
or
sort of
less,
second
but-
round, third round, maybe.
That Brashard Smith as
Um,
well, SMU. That's a steal on
Yeah.
7th, isn't it? Guy's got pace.
Gillette's. I like Gillette as
Another
well in their third rounder pick. You know,
Chiefs always seem to do decent picks for some fucked up reason in drafts.
because he
always.
was
And
like
they're
my
really low
number.
as well.
I was hoping he would drop to the 4th because he was, when I said like about the Wilson pick, and I would have preferred to have picked, say, Jack Sawyer.
Yeah.
Gillette was my second edge behind Sawyer. If something happened, I would have liked to have taken him. But, you know, like you said, the Chiefs managed to just always seem to manage to nail this. Let's move on to the Chargers. Omarion Hampton in 1, Trey Harris 2, Jamari Caldwell 3, Kyle Kennard 4, Lambert Smith 5, Oriande Gradson 5, Branson Taylor 6, RJ Mickens 6, and Bridges in 7. Hampton in the first, that's a Harbour player. He's just big, he's strong. He will run through people rather than around them.
You think he went a bit early though, or not? Or
no, I think I had his floor at
round 2.
No, I had his floor. Or yeah, I would say I had his ceiling. I'll rephrase.
Did you have him at 2 though? Going at number 2 after Gentry?
Yes,
did you have
I did.
Trayvon?
Yeah. No. I had him at 2. He and Gentry were the only 2 running backs I had a first round grade on. I had his ceiling. As high as Dallas at 12. You know, it doesn't surprise me he fell to 22. I did think he'd probably go at 20 for Denver, but you know, he fell to around where I expected him to be.
Yeah.
Kyle Kennard in the 4th round, I think that's a steal.
That's a steal, yeah. 100%. Even Mickens, I think, dropped quite that safety. I thought I had him a bit higher than a 6th.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Moving on to the Rams, they traded out of the first round with Atlanta, mainly because they didn't have many picks, and so they traded back to collect more numbers. Terrence Ferguson 2, Isaiah Stewart 3, Jarquez Hunter 4, Ty Hamilton 5, Chris Paul Jr. 5, and Mumpfield in 7.
I only know
how Chris Paul fell that far. He was like my 5th linebacker, I think. You know, I had a second round grade on him. Josiah Stewart, that's a steal in the 3rd round. Again, he could have gone a round earlier. Terrence Ferguson, maybe I had him going around there, give or take. But I think the Rams tried to cover as many needs as they could. Sean McVay said he wasn't interested in a QB this year, so I expect with his 2 first rounders next year.
We thought Sanders might go there, didn't we? When we were on live.
Yeah, later on. But I expect one of those first rounders next year, or even both of them, to be packaged to get a QB. I think they will need a QB. They will need a QB next year, if not to replace Stafford, then to back him up for a year, just ready to take the mantle. Moving on to the Raiders. Gentry in 1, Jack Bech in 2, Dorian Porter 3, Caleb Rogers 3, Charles Grant 3, Deontay Thornton 4, Tom Henningway 4, JJ Plegs 6, Timmy Mallet 6, Cam Miller 6, and Cody Lindbergh 7. Dorian Porter in the 3rd round, at the beginning of the 3rd round.
Yeah.
He for me, I thought he might last to sort of end of 3, beginning of 4. I don't know whether we could say that that's a reach, but as cornerbacks go off the board, if he's your best one on your board and you feel you need him, then you go for it. But I do wonder whether that's a little high.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they picked up Gentry at 6. The longer the process went, the more it seemed that they were going to take either Gentry or Tetmac. And as you got towards the end of the week, everyone was saying it's Gentry. So, Jack Bech, I wasn't fully engrossed in him. I didn't see the appeal that a lot of other people did.
I think people are going by his story, innit, more than what.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't know, he lost his younger brother in the terrorist attack in New Orleans at New Year. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the club.
So that's what happened there. Moving on to another division rival for us, Miami. They picked up Kenneth Grant in 1, Jonas Savaiinaea in 2. And then they didn't have any picks until the 5th round. Jordan Phillips, 5. Jason Marshall, 5. Dante Trellis, 5. Ollie Gordon, 6. Quinn Ewers, quarterback, 7. And Zeke Biggers, Georgia Tech, 7. Ollie Gordon, I like.
Did they not lose all their picks because of the Ramsey's picks, or is this to do with the Ramsey trade? They lost quite a couple of third rounders.
They did. They did lose a few, yeah. Savaiinaea is a good pick. We talked about that one earlier.
Nicked him off us,
And again, Kenneth Grant, first rounder. We're gonna have to face these guys on a regular basis.
Just to touch on, you might have more insight than what I do. So this Ollie Gordon too, he's very high in, because I play a lot of college, but play it on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
This Oklahoma State guy is top 3 running back in that game. So why he's dipped to round 6, I don't get the whole history, or has he got injury issues, or he's just not consistent, or
correct inconsistency.
Okay. Right. Okay.
He could have an absolute fantastic game where he'd run 150, 200 yards, and then the next game he'd run 20 yards. He was really inconsistent. He went through a period, sort of, I would say late October through to sort of middle of November. Yeah, just gone. Season just gone. He went through a period of about 3 weeks where you couldn't stop him. He just kept running and running and running. But then he went really quiet for a lot of the rest of the season. So I think he just blows hot and cold, I think, is his issue.
Okay.
Let's move on to Minnesota. They were, like the Rams, they were another team that didn't have many picks.
Yeah. Really.
They took
Donovan Jackson.
They took Donovan Jackson in 1. They took Ty Felton in 3. Kyron Ingram Dawkins in 5. Kobe King in 6. And Gavin Bartholomew in 6. The only thing I'm going to say about this one is Donovan Jackson in the first round. Although I gave him a first round grade, he caught me unawares. I didn't think as the draft sort of progressed, I thought that he wasn't going to get picked by the Vikings. I expected him to go a bit later, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know whether I gave him a great first round grade. Whether you want to say that's too high, I don't know. But
I think I gave him early 2 in the second round, but tops.
We'll skip the Patriots because the guys have done a show on that already. Moving on to the Saints. They picked Kelvin Banks in the 1st, Tyler Shough in the 2nd, Vernon Broughton in the 3rd, Jonas Sanker in the 3rd, Danny Stutzman in the 4th,
Steal.
Quincy Riley in the 4th, Devon Neal in the 6th,
Steal.
Movato in the 7th, and Fadil Diggs in the 7th. There's 3 sleepers there that I had on my draft that I absolutely loved. Sanker at 3, Stutzman in 4, and Quincy
Neal.
Riley.
Well, I had Devon Neal running back. I thought he was quite decent.
Yeah, those 3 though, they were my sleepers. That I really like those 3 guys, and for Saints to pick up all 3 of them, for me, that's a good draft. And
100%.
Yeah, I don't have anything against Tyler Shirt. I know he's an older guy. I know, he spent a lot of time in college because he had a lot of redshirted years due to injury. Like with a lot of these players, if he's over his injury problems, he could be a good pick. It's one of those you just don't know.
Well, they all thought they were going with Sanders, but obviously not.
Well, right, the Giants. They picked Abdul Carter at 3. It was kind of a must. You couldn't pass on him, really. They traded back into the first round with Atlanta.
Question.
Yes.
If they did pass, do you think Patriots would have got him?
Who, Carter?
Yeah.
Well,
because I have a theory of like saying that it was Campbell or it was going to be Campbell.
Well, yeah, that's what everyone says. It was going to be Campbell or nothing at all. But I think it was one of those.
And we didn't get any calls for any pick, any like trade outs or anything like that. So
I think at that point everyone knew that Carter wasn't going to be skipped on, so it kind of makes the decision for you. In the same way that we were talking about Jaden Higgins and Henderson in the second. Oh, which one do we pick? Which one do we pick? Oh, Houston have picked one of them, so we'll go with the other one. I think had Carter been on the board, there might have had to be a serious conversation. But you might have also then got somebody like, let's say, Carolina. They might have been willing to pay the world for, call and pay the world for Carter.
Yeah, because they did.
And you'd have still been able to.
It was all silent.
You'd have still been able to get Campbell at 8. So.
Anyway.
So they picked Carter at 1. They traded back in with Atlanta, picked Jackson Dart at 1. Darius Alexander in 3. Cam Scatbo 4. Marcus Bowe 5. Thomas Fedone in 7. And Corey Black in 7. I won't spend too long on the Giants other than to say Marcus Bowe went a lot lower than I thought he was going to go. I had him gone by end of the 3rd. So for him to be there in the 5th was surprising. And I love the Darius Alexander pick. I really do. Yeah, he's a little bit older at 26, but he will give them a good
good grade. Part of those 2 7-rounders, I think they've nailed all the other picks. Scatbo at 4 as well. My God, decent.
Our final division rival, the New York Jets. The Jets are the Jets. Member at 1, Mason Taylor 2, Isaiah Thomas in 3, Arian Smith 4, McCatchy Moore 4, Francisco Moraga in 5, and Tyler Barron 5. Anything on those?
I only know the top 2.
You only know the top 2.
Membu is a no-brainer. They had to pick him. I think he was the best OT on the board at the time. Mason Taylor, again, that's someone that I wanted for the Patriots. I think his upside is going to be. He still has needs to be coached and stuff like that, but I think his ceiling could be higher than what it currently is. And the rest I don't know who the fuck they are. So,
okay. The only thing I would say is Isaiah Thomas in 3. I had him with a high 2nd round grade, so I think for him to still be there at 3. That's a pretty good pick. The Philadelphia Eagles, Campbell at 1, Makuba at 2, Ty Robinson 4, Matt Williams 5, Mondham 5, Drew Kendall 5. I know he was one of yours.
Yeah.
Kyle McCord 6,
Another one.
Miles Hinton 6, Cameron Williams 6, and Powell Ryland in 6. Cameron Williams in the 6th, that's a steal. Drew Kendall in the 5th, that's a steal.
McCord, I think I was highly thinking then.
And Makuba, I had a second round grade on, so for him to go all the way to the end of the second round, but yeah, a good pick nevertheless.
Yeah.
On to the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
They picked Derek Harmon at 1 when we all expected it to be Shador, but no. Harmon at 1, Caleb Johnson in 3. They had no second rounder because of their trade with Seattle for the big guy, wide receiver.
Metcalf,
that's the one. Jack Sawyer in 4. Again, like I said, he was the one that I wanted for the Patriots. Yaya Black in 5. That's a good pick. Will Howard in 6. Surprised Will Howard lasted that long. Carson Brunner in 7 and Dante Kent in 7. Like I said, surprised Will Howard lasted that long. Annoyed we chose not to get Sawyer. Other than that, I think the Pittsburgh just covered their needs really and picked what they needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on to the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, okay.
Gray Zabel at 1, Nick Amanwari 2, Elijah Arroyo in 2. That would have been the Pittsburgh pick, I think. No, sorry. The Amanwari was the Pittsburgh pick. Jalen Milroe in 3, Riley Mills in 5. Again, got injured in the playoffs for Notre Dame. For them to get a pick, use a pick on him and redshirt him for the year, absolute steal. Riley Mills. Torrey Horton in 5. Robbie Uzzles in 5. Bryce Collider in 6. Damian Martinez 7. Mason Richmond 7. And Ricky White in 7. I love Nick Amanwari. I had him on my board higher than Malachi Starks. That's how much I rated that guy. I've been singing his praises on this podcast since, or certainly as well as on the college podcast, since sort of December, way before December, probably. That guy is, he was really on my radar. Jalen Milroe, I think, is a good shout for the Seahawks. He needs some work. He needs to improve his footwork, needs to stop gunslinging all the time and just sort of think about the actual game. But yeah, I think that can be coached out of him. But all in all, I think Seattle had a good draft.
Yeah, I think.
Moving on to the 49ers.
Who's the quarterback of Seattle now?
Sam Darnold. They got Sam Darnold in free agency.
So Milroe could, if Darnold is not careful.
Yeah, I think it's is Darnold's year that he had last year for the Vikings. Is that the aberration, or is what we saw at the Jets the aberration? I think that's where we'll wait and see. San Francisco, Mikael Williams 1, Alfred Collins 2, Nick Martin 3, Upton Stout 3, CJ West 4, Jordan Watkins 4, Jordan James 5, Marquez Siegs 5, Curtis Rourke 7, Connor Colby 7, and Junior Bergen 7. I won't say much about San Francisco other than Connor Colby in the 7 and Curtis Rourke in 7. They were 2 sleepers I had. I thought I've been really high on Connor Colby all year. I think he's a really impressive guard, and he's maybe someone we should have targeted late on. And the other pick I really like from the 49ers is CJ West in the 4th. I really like him as well. I think he's a steal that late.
Yeah, very defensive picks, I think, as well. So
yeah. Moving on to the Bucks.
Yeah.
Emil Egbuka at 1, Benjamin Morrison 2, Jacob Parrish 3, David Walker 4, Elijah Roberts 5, and Tez Johnson 7. How did Tez Johnson drop that low? I know he's like 150 pounds soaking wet through, but how he dropped that low, I will never know. And David Walker at
yeah.
He's the guy that's absolutely huge. I know I've referred to the other guy as a wardrobe. He's like a double wardrobe. He just needs to improve his footwork and get a little bit quicker. So I think both me and you had Jacob Parrish we both mocked Jacob Parrish to the Patriots as well.
Yeah, I did.
I had him down in like the 4th, sometimes in the 5th. So for him to go in the 3rd, that's quite a reach.
I mean, Tampa doing Egbuka, I think that they're probably getting ready for Evans to kind of like come away a bit, and obviously they've got that reinforcement now, and obviously Tez Johnson as well, depending on what that lad can do as well.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Godwin's just signed a new deal, so he's not going anywhere for a while. But he's a bit younger than Yeah. Moving on to Tennessee, they had the number 1 pick. They used it on Cam Ward, which everyone knew was going to happen. Everyone knew sort of 6 weeks ago that was going to happen. They got your guy, Olafanye Oladejo, in 2. They picked up Kevin Winston Jr. in 3. That's an absolute steal. The guy was injured all year, and that's why he's dropped that low, but that is a steal. Tremere Dyke in 4, Gunnar Helm in 4. How did Eric Emmanuel fall that low? Yeah, I had a second-round grade on him, and he fell to the 4th. Well. And I don't know of anything for like, for example, you say about like Mike Green, he had off-the-field issues that caused him to fall, or injuries caused these players to fall. I don't know of any reason that Eric Emmanuel fell, other than
I think you were saying on the live show on day 2 as well. Like, we don't understand why he's dropping that much for Stanford.
Gunnar Helm picking Gunnar Helm in 4. He's like I said about Jackson Hawes. He's a great pass catching tight end, but not so good blocking.
Yeah.
So that's another one that he will probably be more for Bryce Young to hit on the passes rather than helping to block for him. And moving into our last one, the Washington football team, as they are now, the Commanders, whatever they call themselves, they change their name every 5 minutes. I don't know. Josh Connolly in 1. You could have had Josh Simmons. You could have stopped the Chiefs getting Josh Simmons, but no, you chose Josh Connolly. Fantastic, great pick, well done. Hate you for that. Josh Connolly 1, Trey Amos 2, Jalen Lane 4, Kalen Modano in 6, and Koski Merritt in 7. I will give this one an F minus, ungraded, sacked, get out, because you let the Chiefs have Josh Simmons. That's the only thing I've got to say about that. It's
because of Simmons' injury.
I know, but annoys me that they traded back as well from 31 to 32 and still got him, and it's just like, oh, I hate you for that. So
love it,
and that is what's happened. So they were just some of what we felt with regarding to the other teams. So. Is there anything? What was the most fascinating thing you found out about the draft? Because I'll give you mine. While seeing as I'm spurring this on you, I'll give you a second thing. The thing for me was the crowd.
Yes, that was mental. That was massive.
I've never seen a crowd like that 250,000 people on that first night.
It was very, very, very busy.
I knew that the Bears were not going to get a decent reception with their pick, obviously. And for them to bring out Seth Rollins with his title, with his WWE title, and walk out and just start slating Green Bay and being being a Chicago boy, and just I love that. But the one thing I thought was quite funny, and I meant to say this to Carl at the time, but we got distracted talking about something else, is after the Packers picked Golden, did you notice literally most of the crowd went home? It was like, right, Green Bay have picked, we can all go home now. If you watch the footage back, you've got you watch the Packers pick Golden, and within 2 picks of Golden, everyone
goes.
Yeah, it's like they're all Green Bay fans, all waiting for where they're picked, and as soon as Golden's been picked, boom, they're off and they're gone. And it's like it just empties. It's just like when you watch a stadium empty after the football,
or you're losing like 4-0 or something. You're like,
it was like that. It just gone. I mean, it emptied quicker than Old Trafford did when Man City went 6-1 up in the 90th minute. So go on. I put you on the spot there. What did you like most about the draft this week?
It felt kind of different this year. I don't know. It had a different vibe of like, I think it was more because it was a very in-depth draft where the excitement was like you got 4th round, 5th round pick players that can easily be starters. It's that like heavy, much in depth. So I think it's more the prospects were higher this year in getting someone in the late rounds that can be a steal and could easily be a fit for the right team. The shock for me was obviously the Sanders situation, where we didn't expect him to drop that much. But yeah, I enjoyed it this year. I think this is probably the first year I've been more involved in I need to get more involved in it. I want to get more involved in like the college side of things as well next year, to have more like information, more upside of like the knowledge that you have, like with Hurdle the Line and stuff like that these players, their weaknesses, their upside. And that's something that's got to be really, 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 really good as well. And it's like you say, it's like Christmas Day for draft. Your Christmas Day is like draft day. Yeah. And that's what you get excited to for year in, year out. So that's why I want to do it next year.
You're almost saying is you'd like to come on a college podcast on a regular basis.
I've not said that. No. You've just put words in my
mouth. Fair enough. I know. I keep pressuring you. Right. Okay. Thank you very much to everybody for listening. Like I said, if you expected this to be a Patriots one, you've missed it. That was last night. Go back. Carl and Kieran did last night. They did a great job. I'm halfway through it. I will listen to the rest tomorrow, guys. So all I can say is thank you very much for listening or watching if you've been watching. We will be back next week with another pod. Probably just a Tuesday, I think. I think we're scheduled to just do Tuesday next week.
Yeah, we'll do next Tuesday,
But from me, from DJ, from all the guys that aren't here, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Smash the like button, follow us, and we will be back with you next week. Have a good week.